Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. This is Pat Foster with TransWorld Motocross. I'm pretty pumped. We're at Glen Helen today for the 2018 YZ450F intro. So we've been really excited to get our hands on this new bike, all new from the ground up. Just to touch briefly on the 2017, the bike had a monster motor, fantastic power, great suspension, probably best in class in high-speed stability. But unfortunately, its biggest attribute, the high-speed stability, also led to being one of its biggest detriments. The bike just felt very planted, which was confidence inspiring on the straightaways, and it handled good and went straight, but it just wasn't very agile. In the corners, it felt lethargic, a little cumbersome. It just didn't want to corner as well as some of the other bikes. And you couple that with the wide radiator shrouds and the bike being on the heavier end, the bike just felt heavy. It felt, like I said, cumbersome cornering. It just wasn't the most agile in the turns. So what it gained in stability, you kind of gave up in some of the other areas on the track. So Yamaha focused a lot of their attention on the chassis this year. This new bike is narrower, the shrouds are narrower, the frame's narrower, the seat's narrower. It's much more comfortable right when you get on the bike. It lost a little bit of weight, which is pretty remarkable considering the fact that they added an electric start. I mean, the electric start is awesome, but it carries with it some weight. Yamaha was actually able to cut a little bit of weight and add the electric start. Although it's very minor on the scale, it's pretty noticeable on the track. Just the geometry of the frame is significantly different. The bike feels a lot more nimble, a lot more agile. You're going into corners, it wants to lay into the corners a lot easier. It's much more aggressive. The bike kind of feels like it has a little bit of a front end bias right now. So it's instead of the weight being towards the rear of the bike with the front end light, it's got a little more weight on the front end, which is making it corner much, much better. We've only spent a few hours on the bike. We don't have all the setup figured out. Right now we're running 100 millimeters of sag. Like I said, a little more weight on the front. It's cornering better. The front end's busier. It's a little bit busier than it was last year, but that's kind of what we were looking for. Last year's bike was too stable, too planted. This bike, you've got to trade a little bit of stability to get the cornering that you like. So I'm not concerned about it. I think that with a little more time playing with it, going to some other tracks, we can figure out some settings that we like. But so far, I'm really excited about this bike. Just the couple hours that we've got into it, it's, like I said, feels narrower, lighter, much more nimble. Of course, it still has what I consider to be the best suspension in the class, the good old springs and oil. Yamaha hasn't deviated from that while others have, and in my opinion, a lot of people have taken several steps backwards. The suspension is great. It's kind of hard to talk about the Yamaha and not start with the motor, because like I said, last year's motor was, in my opinion, the best in the class. Super fast. This year, they've actually made it better. It's a little smoother on the bottom, but it's so broad. The power delivery, it's like you never have to shift this thing. We're at Glen Helen, which is typically a pretty fast track. You could do a lot of the track in second gear, and it's got enough power and enough torque out of the tight corners to pull second, but you can just keep revving the bike to the moon and it keeps making power. Shift to third once in a while, might grab fourth here and there, but it just makes it so easy to ride. This is a very fast bike, very powerful, a lot of depth in the power delivery, but it's also very easy to ride. Smooth, linear delivery. One of the cool things that Yamaha did this year, which is pretty groundbreaking, last year they had the power tuner that you had to buy and you could plug it in and change your maps. Now you can do it from your cell phone. And it was funny, I mentioned to the Yamaha guys, I'd like a little bit more power right out of the bottom, because sometimes I was downshifting into corners where I didn't want to, and if I had a little bit more power, it would pull better. So I was considering maybe a tooth on the back, and Travis Preston goes, hey look, let me text message you this app that I like, gives it more low end. Two minutes later, I've got a new map in the bike from the phone, more low end. I don't need to shift. I don't need to put a sprocket on. The bike works bitchin'. I didn't even lose any top end. It's just more low end, more mid range. I mean, what an amazing thing to be able to program your bike from the phone. So, once again, Yamaha kind of leading the charge in innovations, and pretty exciting. So, only spent a couple hours on the bike. We got a lot of testing to do on this thing. It's all new, but I can say just from the time that we spent on it, man, huge improvements. Very excited about it. I think everything they did was in the right direction, and looking forward to spending some time on this bike. Thank you guys very much for tuning in.